Welcome to Healthcare Heroes, a podcast powered by NPHub.com.
We created this podcast to highlight the incredible, hard-working heroes inside healthcare.
The entrepreneurs, advocates,
and providers that are saving lives and improving their communities
one day at a time.
These are their stories.
I think we're doing it. We are live.
Okay.
So I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today, Kelly. I think our conversation last week was probably the most fun I had all of last week, if I remember right. It was just a blast. So Kelly, why don't you start off with maybe doing a quick intro on who you are, on kind of how we sort of even connected, and just anything you want to share real quick while we're just testing to make sure everything's working right.
Okay, I have a PhD in public health, community health, and education. My dissertation was on colorectal cancer screening and people who go to a CMH and how are we going to get these people checked. And then I have a master's degree in mental health nursing from Wayne State University. My dissertation was on non-traditional religious beliefs in a psychiatric setting. Do they have psychosis or don't they? That was kind of neat. That was fun. And then, communication with the dead, all that. It's Spiritismo, Wicca. I like reading about non-traditional religious beliefs. And then I have a bachelor's of science in nursing. I'm a board certified clinical nurse specialist in adult psychiatry. My master's was in child and adolescent, and I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
So you've done a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's sort of a mouthful.
For 30 years.
So Kelly, one of the things that I was super excited to talk to you about, and just for the folks kind of listening in when they're listening to this podcast, we're talking about a few unique things. One of which is your upcoming book coming out, which is, I think, really apropos with kind of what the previous guests, we're recording this now in early December, or really mid-December, 2021, and our last couple guests have continued talking about all the concepts that NP schools aren't teaching you, and the title of your book, which is Everything You Should Have Learned in Psych School But Didn't, is probably the most fitting thing. Like, I can't actually believe that that's the title of your book, and we found each other over the last several weeks. So we're talking about that today, which is going to be super exciting for all of our Psych NP students that are listening in, for all of our Psych NP preceptors. I think it's going to be great. And then we're also talking about the 15-minute visit, which is... I heard the way you laid out how you do it, and I think it's going to just provide a ton of value to everyone listening in. So I'm really excited to talk about those two things, and then your pet peeve list. So we're going to get to all of it, I promise. We got an hour. We might have more, we might have less, who knows? But you tell me, where would you like to start?
I don't know. How about my pet peeve list? We'll get with that first.
Oh God! You're going to go and head deep. Okay, let's do. So let's start with some context on what is your pet peeve list. How did it come about? So that way the audience knows sort of like where we're getting this from. Okay.
Yeah, I've been working in psych for 30 years, and I like to call myself a fixer because I seem to fix other people's work, and I want everybody to be up to par. And when I precept students through the university where I was teaching and precepting, and or people who come to the community mental health where I primarily have worked most of my career, I see a lot of stuff that's missing and things that people missed along the line. Like, for example, if I'm seeing somebody else's patient, I'm looking and they upped the med last visit, the note doesn't even tell me why, or I don't even know what I'm treating. I have a chapter in the book that says, "What the hell are you treating?" And it explains how to avoid this problem. And that goes along with the 15-minute visit. It's little tips and tricks to use so you know what you're treating from visit to visit and what the rationale is behind what you're doing. Right.
So why isn't it standardized? As someone who's not a nurse kind of like listening into this, I would think that, in the business world, you sort of have an SOP, right? Standard operating procedure of like, this is how you do things. Is that not the way it works in nursing? Is that not the way schools are teaching it?
No, I don't think they're teaching how to do a basic note. Nurses know how to ask more and get elaboration from each one of the symptoms that someone may have. But nobody's really listing all the symptoms or documenting it. I don't know what the problem is. If people are slow typers, they're in a hurry, or they don't think it's important. One of my pet peeves is those stupid lists that they give people in the lobby to fill out, depression scales and all that stuff. They hand it to me and the number means nothing. What am I treating? I don't know, 16, 18, I don't know. Let's put down exactly what we're treating. And each symptom, are they getting better? Or are they not? What are we treating? Not a number. But my little checklist, and actually if you want, I don't know if you want to post it on your site, I'll give you my chapter on optimizing the 15-minute visit. I'll put it on there.
That. We will throw it on the show notes and we'll do it up.
Cool. Yeah, I'll give you that. That way it elaborates a little more to help you out, and my checklist is in there. And that's the one I found I use the most. Now, the only time checklists do come in handy, hold on, you got to remember this, is when they have certain conditions like tardive dyskinesia. You need to use the Ames list. You need to have that. Kleptomania, you need to have a sheet filled out. There's certain conditions where you do have to have those. Pseudobulbar affect's another one. You need to have that checklist to get the meds paid for. And those are important checklists to use. Those are good ones. The rest, I'm sorry. I have no use for them.
Interesting. So then help me understand then. So you basically are having, everyone is basically kind of, this is charting, correct? Everyone's charting differently. And
yeah,
it's not being standardized even across schools, right? So students that may graduate from like a Wayne State, they're not being taught this particular way. They're basically just said out there to kind of go figure it out on your own.
Right. And all the electronic medical records are different. And sometimes they have checklists for things, but the checklists are too hard to go back and look. You don't have time to read a whole checklist of things. So it makes it more difficult when there's just check boxes everywhere for symptoms that you're treating. All I want to know in the main body of the note is, what are you treating? It needs to be spelled out and listed. That's all.
That's fair. That's fair. So what inspired you to write a book? And specifically,
well, I got sick of,
actually, no, go ahead.
I got sick of the incompetence in medicine in general. I have a theory 50% of people are incompetent at their jobs. 50%. Wow. I think that's all over every field there is. But think about it. Who you interact with phone calls and companies, and think about it. Yeah, but I just got so frustrated. Like, I still see people getting discharged from the hospital, young girls on Depakote for bipolar. Who's using Depakote in these young girls? Yes, they're going to get polycystic ovary syndrome. They're going to gain a ton of weight and get belly fat. They start going bald on top. They're going to have acne on their face and a hairy chin. Who does that to somebody? If they get pregnant, most of them aren't even on birth control when they're discharged. If they get pregnant, their kid's going to be deformed or something. It has some bad side effects for pregnancy. And they're still using Depakote in young girls. And I just feel so awful when I see that. And I don't know why it's still going on. Or here's a big pet peeve. I know you've probably seen this before. They go into the hospital because they went off their meds. And what do they get discharged on? Not an injection, 5 more pills. So how's that going to work? They're in because they wouldn't take their pills. They're discharged not on an injectable med. They're discharged on like 5 different pills, more pills. So they're right back in again. And then they go through withdrawal, especially if somebody puts them on a benzo. But anyways, it's I don't understand the concept. I'd like to see more care with people. Those are 2 of my pet peeves right there, especially that Depakote. That's a problem. I don't know why that's happening.
Well, I mean, why is this? Why is something like this happening then? Like,
that's medical providers. I don't know. It's not NPs. It's who's ever working in the hospitals. I see a lot, and I don't know why. I don't understand.
So, I mean, I think a lot of places which maybe chalk that up to the amount of time and the way that sort of patient care is kind of handled nowadays, right? Where you're seeing patients in and out really quickly. You don't have the same time. So then maybe this is the right time to transition to that 15-minute visit. How do you do that? How do you get enough information in 15 minutes, figure out the underlying reason why someone is or is not kind of following their protocol, and handle that in addition to treating them? Like, how do you do all of that?
Right. I wanted to make it clear, they usually have the psych eval done. That's like an hour visit, but the following visits are usually 15 minutes. Now, remember, if you're lucky enough to have a 30-minute visit, chances are that you may have to charge their, take their credit card information and reschedule them yourself. That knocks off 10 minutes right there. Think about it. So if you think, I got 30 minutes per person, you probably really don't. In the 15-minute visit at CMHs, you don't have to reschedule or fool with the money. But I use my checklist to get the patients and myself focused right away. Then I have them elaborate on each positive answer that they have, so I better understand where it's coming from. Like a lot of times, this is another pet peeve, sleep. I'm not sleepy. I'm just not getting any rest. I'm not sleeping. Well, your further questions are, what time do you go to bed? 10 o'clock. When do you fall asleep? Oh, I fall asleep right away. I'm always exhausted. Okay, and what time do you get up? I get up at 6 o'clock every morning. I'm thinking to myself, well, no, that's good enough. That's 8 hours. So what's the problem with your sleep? Well, I want to get up at 9 or 10 in the morning. I don't want to get up at 6. So they want a sleeping pill. And you got some jokers that'll give them a sleeping pill because they didn't ask those questions. Then you have to explain, look, if you want to get up later, you got to go to bed later. If you want to get up at 10, don't go to bed till 2. Oh, but I don't want to go to bed that late. So it's a circular conversation. So I've had so many times with people, but 8 hours is all the sleep you need. And if you take a nap, knock an hour off that somewhere. So people don't ask those questions. And they just hand them something to help them sleep. And they're getting enough sleep. They're getting 8 hours. So when you elaborate on those questions, you know what to ask. Also, people forget to ask about olfactory and tactile hallucinations and bedwetting. One of my pet peeves here. I can't tell you. I'd say it's at least once.
Did you say bad wedding?
Bedwetting, wetting the bed.
Oh, bed. Oh, okay. Interesting.
I always ask that. That may or may not be on my checklist, but do you ever wet the bed while you're sleeping? Or do you ever wet your pants, go number 1 or number 2 in your pants and didn't realize it happened? And I'm not talking stress incontinence here in women. And you'd be surprised at the number of people that do have that. And that means they need a neuro referral to rule out nocturnal seizures. And maybe a urology referral as well. So I whip off a letter to their primary care provider recommending a neurological consult, first and foremost, and or whatever else they need to rule out neurological or other causes of this.
Wow. So does your experience, does your evaluation of the patient start like when they come into your office, or does it start like when they comes into the room that you're treating, like the treatment room? I go and get them from the lobby and bring them in. And are you evaluating anything there?
I get my 15 minutes with them. If they've already had an hour visit with me, I usually know quite a bit about them. Sometimes I don't. Or if I'm reading somebody else's note, it doesn't tell me much. So then, but when I use my checklist, that's all I need. I get all the information I need in that 15-minute visit. And here's another trick. If you're not doing telepsych and you're actually going to the lobby to get them, when they come in, watch how they walk. Do they have full arm swing, or do they have no arm swing or one-sided arm swing, which could be some Parkinsonism showing up from the psych meds? How do they look when they walk? Are they steady? Who's with them in the lobby? So when they come in, the other trick I use is it's not really an appointment, it's a visit. I use the word visit. And I'll be facing the computer one way, and I have them sit next to me, facing me. That way, it's more like a friendly visit, and I can look right at them. I have the checklist right there that they look at, and it's more like a personable visit. But remember, safety. Make sure you can get out of the door quick. Don't leave any stuff on your desk like staplers and scissors and all that stuff, because human behavior is unpredictable. And I always let my coworkers know my door is open when patients aren't with me. That way I listen to other rooms, make sure nobody else needs my help or somebody's getting angry in a room. I'm always listening for that. So I have the door open when I'm not with the patient. When I'm with the patient, it's closed. And make sure the door doesn't lock. I've seen people where their doors automatically lock, so people can't get in. So you want to check that. The other thing is, don't put your book bags or anything on the floor. Med students do that especially. There's bed bugs everywhere. So remember that. Keep them off the floor. One of my chapters is how to avoid getting bit by bed bugs and bring them home.
Bed bugs?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a major... Is that a major concern?
It's a major problem. Yes. They're everywhere. It's an epidemic. See, the problem is when the bed bugs bite you, they anesthetize you so you don't feel them biting you. Then later on, a few hours later, all of a sudden you get a bite worse than your worst mosquito bite. It's just so bad. But some people aren't allergic to it. So they don't know they've been bitten and fed upon. Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're not allergic to them, whatever. But if you're allergic to them, boy, you know it right away and it's a problem. But I have all these tips and tricks in the book how to avoid the bed bugs. So you don't bring them home.
Yeah, all right. Any personal experience or, I don't know, I guess any personal experience or story that kind of, that like makes you think of like bed bugs being an issue? What was your first experience with it?
Well, I ended up getting these little bites on my legs that itched so bad, worse than a mosquito bite. And they itched so bad. And I showed a psychiatrist I worked with. I said, gosh, I got these horrible bites on me. I don't remember getting bitten. But I was outside, this and that. And then some jokers at the office. Now, that's another thing. I have a thing on my book about being nice to people who have been bitten, victims of the bed bugs, because people judge you. Oh, well, you got animals. One of them probably has fleas. Well, no, my animals are clean, all of them. I smell and kiss all of them every day, and they're clean and fresh. But the bed bug issue, people can be really mean about it, or they'll deny, or they'll say it was something else, or they've been in the office and they didn't get bit. Well, maybe they're not allergic and they did, but they don't know it. So that's the trick. So, I have a thing about being nice to people who have been bitten, because a lot of people will try to say that, it didn't happen here. And you'd be surprised all the people that give you a hard time with that. So then I figured out what they were, and then I researched it, how to prevent. I always would take my clothes and shoes off in the garage. I put diatomaceous earth. Now that stuff's really good. It gets rid of any bugs because it's soft like powder, but it's like barbed wire to the insect, any insect. And it penetrates their exoskeleton and their larva. So it's like barbed wire. So I always put that on the floor of my car where my feet go in case one was on me and crawled off. One office, it got so bad, I used Vicks Vapor Rub around the perimeter of my shoes. I just did that on my own. I think it helped. I don't know. There's no studies on it, but I did that. And then you can buy these little holders for your desk where they can't climb over them to climb up your desk, or in your drawers where your purse might be kept. The same thing you can do with your chairs. And be prepared to give a handout to your patients too, because a lot of them have bed bugs and they're embarrassed with it. So I go over some holistic ways to get rid of them.
If somebody told me we'd be talking about bed bugs today at the start of the day, I would have fucking just I would not have believed it. I don't even understand what's happening right now. But this is fantastic, and I hope somebody. I hope there's one nurse listening to this podcast that's like, you know what? That's absolutely right, because my head's exploding. I have no idea. I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just kind of like.
I hope I didn't freak anybody out. But it's something you need to know. Hey, you need to know it.
I guess you do. What is there something else I need to know, or people need to know about this? Maybe not about bed bugs. Maybe something else that's uncommon yet also equally ridiculous.
Well, some places the police don't come when you call them, so you have to take the law into your own hands and keep everybody safe. Because a lot of times they don't come; they're too understaffed or busy. So certain places you have to just know and be careful and watch out for each other, and always plan a shooter in the building. What are you going to do? And a lot of them have drills and all that. Have it in your mind what you're going to do, and always practice it in your head. And crimes and safety and all that. So I always have things drilled in my head about what I would do in different scenarios, going to and from my car, this and that. So I always have safety in mind. Make sure patients don't follow you home. And another thing is online, I look myself up all the time. And what you can do is when you find out, what you can do is you can have the companies, they'll take your name off. You just send them a note, you work with dangerous people, and they'll take you off of there. But right now, you can find your relatives, your parents, their address, and somebody can find a lot out about you by doing web searches. So I periodically recheck myself and look for myself. And then my husband has a different last name than me. When I got married to him, I didn't take his last name. So like his last name's all over the place, on the mailbox, everywhere else. Because I've worked with rapists, murderers, pedophiles, sociopaths, gang members, the works. Human behavior is unpredictable, so you have to protect yourself.
Interesting. Honestly, we might title this section like unspoken, like the unspoken things that you'd never hear about, right? Or
right.
Something like that, because this is really, honestly, it's fantastic in a way.
Well, it's good for people to know. It's important information other people might not mention, and you might be naive. I live in the country and people don't lock their doors. They don't lock their doors at all, even when they're in the backyard. They leave the front door open, or they'll leave their purse sitting in a shopping cart or in the passenger side of the door unlocked. I'm like, oh my, just the things I see, I'm just amazed. But if some of these people that live in areas like that go to work somewhere that isn't very safe, they may forget some of these things. Hopefully you'll have a mentor and someone that'll help you.
That is really interesting and a good transition point to talk a bit about mentorship. But before we jump to that, I think my follow-up question would be, is everything you're saying very specific to psych NPs and the experience they're going through? Are there any lessons that as a psych NP you've sort of experienced or you've encountered that other nurse practitioners, other advanced practice nurses might benefit from, or might not experience on a day-to-day, but might really help them in the future?
Yeah, I call it a rookie move. Okay. Oh, they're still anxious and they're on antidepressant. I'm going to add a benzo, like Klonopin, Xanax, Ativan. That's called a rookie move. That's what I call it. Because when you don't know what to do, you think benzo. That's wrong. Go back and think, what did you miss in the diagnosis? Why isn't the antidepressant working for their anxiety? Are they getting therapy? Maybe they have bipolar 2. You know how many years it takes to get a bipolar 2 diagnosis?
I do
About
not.
15 years. 15 years. I find a ton of people with bipolar 2 who always think they have anxiety and depression. And they always say, oh, the medicine wore off. I've been on, and they'll list all the antidepressants they've been on, and they work for a while and then they wear off. Antidepressants don't wear off. They cycled. So usually they have bipolar 2. And when you explain to them, another trick I do is I use my hands too. For bipolar 2, I always say you need something that's going to uplift you. And I raise my hands up if you're listening to a podcast, like raising them up. And then I put them upward. I say, we need something to calm. One hand goes up. We need something to calm you down. And then I make my hands go together. We need something to stabilize you. Because people with bipolar 2, a lot of them have an edgy irritability with that anxiety. And they never really feel good. And one of the trick questions is I always say, hey, is this you? Do you ever get like 4 hours of sleep a night and you feel like crap, you're exhausted, but you can still function, but you're tired and irritable. You just don't feel good. Then days you can get 8 hours of sleep or more, but you never really feel good. Yeah, that's me, and they're like, that's usually one of the signs right there. They never really feel good and calm, relaxed, or just happy and contented. So you got to always look for bipolar 2, but so don't be a rookie, okay? I don't use benzos or controlled Z meds like sleeping pills. And I've been working with the sickest of the sick for 30 years, and my people are fine. I don't use benzos. They're too dangerous. And I have a checklist of why I don't use benzodiazepines. But so please don't be a rookie. If you think benzos, go back and think, what did you miss from the beginning? You missed something, or they're lying to you. So think about it.
Interesting. I like this. I'm going to call this the Kelly Says Don't Be a Rookie segment. And we'll go from there. Like,
don't be a rookie.
People are going to love that. They're going to love it's going to be fantastic.
Well, I'm going to have a cartoon. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, what'd you say?
I'm going to have a cartoon in my book. Now, this is only for seasoned people listening. The preceptors listening to this would get the joke of it. I don't know if everybody else will, but the nurse practitioner is sitting there and the patient's there, and the patient says to the nurse practitioner, I'd like to try this medication that my friend gave me. It worked really well, and I think it starts with a Z. Well, the joke is, it's really, they're looking for Xanax that begins with an X. And that I can't tell you how many times I've been in that scenario, and so I'm going to have them draw. I have an illustrator that's going to draw a little comic of that, and people in the field will get it. Now a lot of community mental health and other agencies are benzo free, which is great, because I made the mistake. Here's a good mistake not to make. I worked at one clinic. I didn't know any better, and everybody was on 2 milligrams of Xanax 3 times a day. It was an FNP seeing patient who wasn't psych trained, and her collaborator wasn't overseeing things or something. I don't know why this happened, but she said everybody had anxiety. So they were all on the Xanax, and then I get in there and propose to wean. People threaten to stab you in the head. They're going to be waiting for you outside. They're going to kill you. They turn abruptly when you mention about weaning them off the Xanax. They are going to fire you. They want another provider. They're submitting a complaint. It can be a real nightmare to follow somebody else's benzodiazepine issues. Or they're always losing them. Somebody stole them. They'll come in with a broken finger. They pulled the bag right out of my hand at the pharmacy. Stuff like that. Then what do? You can't cut them off cold turkey. They could have a seizure and driving and kill somebody from withdrawal. Then they could blame you. Well, you didn't refill my meds, so I went through a withdrawal and had a seizure. So there's all sorts of problems with benzos. It takes you down a rabbit hole. Not to mention,
sounds terrifying.
It's a nightmare, and the liability and all that. But I've got some little handouts that you can give patients. But don't work a job where they do benzos, or you follow someone that does, because it'll be nothing but problems for you. And we even had a guy at that place selling them in the lobby, right in the lobby. Anyways, the bottom line is, be careful where you work and make sure they have a no benzo policy. Most of them do now.
Is this something that's like really, like, again, just for the occasional non-nurse listening to this podcast, or maybe even someone from like my team listening in, is that something that's very common? Is that very well known that benzo has a ton of side effects, and that's something that you shouldn't be using in the field, or are people still using it pretty commonly? I'm
not sure, but they stopped them from using it at most of the CMHs that I know of. They all got out of it, and they don't do it anymore. They post signs in the lobby and this and that. And when most of them transitioned at the same time to a no benzo policy, and it was a problem. The other thing that new nurse practitioners need to know is, don't assume somebody else's benzo problem. The primary care doctor will have somebody on Xanax 4 times a day or whatever, and they're not getting any better, and they want more Xanax because they habituated to it, and it's not working like it used to. So they send them to psych. So then you get them. I don't take other people's benzo problems. What I do is I send a letter to the PCP saying, I'm not going to assume the benzodiazepine issue. I will not prescribe it. This is the wean that I recommend. And then I write down what the wean should be, what I recommend. I'm going to help take care of these issues with the person, and I recommend that you wean them off of the Xanax using this protocol. Because you know what happens if you don't put a protocol for them down ahead of time to the PCP? They'll take them off too quickly, and they'll come in your office going nuts because they got taken off too quick. Then you got to restart them, and it's a mess. So give them a wean schedule, okay?
And the reason for that is it's risk minimization, right? You don't want to be held accountable to anything related to that because you wouldn't have treated them like that in the beginning. Right. If you feel comfortable doing the wean, they need to know up front that a wean is taking place. And I don't care what the excuse is, because another problem, you start the wean and somebody died. Well, I had to go to the funeral and this and that, so I had to take an extra one. It's always going to be a reason why they can't get off, or you have to give them a little more. It's just a problem. If you want to deal with it and assume somebody else's benzo problem, that's fine. You can wean them off yourself, but be warned, there's going to be issues for most people, 9 times out of 10. Don't get me wrong. I'm just telling you the worst. Some people are honest and fine. Sure, you can take me off them. That's fine. I never take my midday dose anyways. Okay, so which dose do you want to go off of, the nighttime or the morning? I'm kind of tired during the day. I said, let's break that morning one in half then.
Stay on the night one, though. Don't cut quicker than I tell you. And then, we wean them off. So a lot of people are fine. I'm telling you the worst of the worst so that you're prepared.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, you got to start with you got to think worst case scenario at times. That makes a ton of sense.
I don't want to scare you. I'm just
trying to keep up. I'm just trying to really pay attention. I'm still stuck on you're like, people say Xanax, but they really mean with the Z. And I was thinking Zyrtec the entire time. Like, what does that do? I heard that on the TV,
Yeah, if you were in the field, you would get it immediately. Because you always hear that.
Just
a friend
in
gave us, it started with a Z.
Yeah. 100%.
You just laugh at yourself. You're like, oh.
Okay, so you mentioned, you mentioned something like mentors would really kind of help you, especially in the beginning. I think with psych, it sounds like there is a big learning curve to sort of, in that first job, just kind of really figuring out how to work with patients, understanding maybe the secondary effects of kind of your treatments and whatnot. So how, I know you had mentioned that you sort of get not stuck, but you kind of volunteer a lot of your time to being that mentor in the field. What are some of those big mistakes or lessons? Let's focus on lessons. Let's talk about not mistakes necessarily, on lessons that fresh graduates really need to learn before they become a quote-unquote seasoned nurse practitioner.
I think it's not so much what they need to learn is they need someone to help guide them throughout the process. Because what I've seen is I've seen PAs and NPs get trained by an idiot who becomes a doctor that may work with them and be their collaborator and this and that. And that person's an idiot. It's well known they're an idiot. So then that person that they train starts acting like an idiot and they don't know it. So it's important that you get various mentors and people in your life that you trust and that you've seen the work that they've done. And that it's gold standard and evidence-based. And you can always learn from different people. So don't stick with one person. Make sure that you get thoughts and how other people work. And that's why the preceptorship is so important. Learning from different people, how they practice, how they think about things, how they document. And I think that you are mentors.
So, there are some schools, I don't think we've ever really discussed this at NPHub on the podcast, but there are some schools that allow you to precept, to do multiple rotations with one preceptor. And there are other schools that really almost kind of push you that you can only do one rotation with a preceptor. Why is it better to have multiple preceptors and versus just one preceptor who can kind of train you throughout, knowing that there's a shortage, nurses struggle to find preceptors, it might take them extra several months to find the other person to help them with their next rotation. Why is that helpful for them?
Well, in some clinics, I know I personally, in the CMH setting, they'll have students with me and I don't always have time. They're more watching me work. And I try to explain things between visits, but it's such a fast pace. I worry that they might miss something. And then if I get them in my chair to do the 15-minute visit, I have to kick them out of the chair 15, 20 minutes later because they're turning it into an hour med review because they don't know how to ask the questions until you train them how to do that. Then I train them and then they can do it and it works out well how to document. But that takes extra time. Not all preceptors want to spend that extra time, especially if they're not getting paid for it and it's put upon them from their bosses and they don't have less caseload. They're expected to do the same amount of work. And I also remind students to be nice to the preceptors, offer to bring them coffee or something like that, because, it's hard work. It's very hard work. And that's why I'm glad they got NPHub, because you get people that are invested in doing it. It's important that they do it. They enjoy it. So they're more invested in it. Not everyone is. I'd hate for someone to be stuck with an idiot, then they start becoming an idiot. Hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Telling it like it is. Telling it by it is by Dr. Gardiner.
My parents always say, you keep it real. I guess you keep it real. That means
oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. I literally, my marketing manager, Christina, you've communicated with her. She's slacking me right now. And she's like, yeah, this is real and honest. She's keeping it real. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly it. This is great. So then I guess going back then, maybe just I don't know, like let's say a minute and a half. Do you think it is better to have one preceptor or multiple preceptors throughout one's education?
I don't know. It depends how invested they are. It's probably good to at least get 2 different ones.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of states mandate collaborators. The friends and former students that I help now, as like mentoring them, they have collaborators that just aren't around. They call them, they can't get a hold of them. They don't really help them to guide them. They don't find them helpful at all. So they give me a call with complex cases and to run things by, my thoughts on things. But I try to get them like, what about this? Get them to think for themselves. And I've watched them blossom, and it's really fun to see how they've come along with their practice. Yeah, one of them did a rookie move, started somebody on a benzo and called me up. She goes, now what do I do? I said, I'm sorry, you're on your own.
Wow. Straight up, just tough love.
She laughed. She knew, but I thought, I'm not bailing you out of this. I warned you, and you went ahead and did it. So you're going to have to read the books on how to wean somebody off safely.
Are you finding more new NPs are reaching out to you, and maybe mentors kind of similar to you because of more complex cases, or are they reaching out more on like the business side of how to open up a practice or how to find a collaborator? What are you finding more of right now?
Both. One of mine is starting her own practice, but she's working for someone else now. I told her, get the collaborator now, because that's a problem. Many of you, if you're thinking of starting your own telepsych business or other business, it takes about 1.5 years before you're going to get paid for anything. So don't bother seeing any patients until you get that taken care of.
Ooh, 1.5 years. Why is that?
I never did get credit. It took forever. I had my own company that I started, and I had more than enough patients to see. Well, I had a credential, get all my stuff in for credentialing. Medicaid straight went through really quick. The problem is people don't stay on straight Medicaid. They switch to the HMO types quite quickly thereafter. And it was awful. The Blue Cross finally came through after like 6 months, but they would go back a month. It was a real problem. And so I was seeing all these patients for free for 6 months, 2 days a week. And I'm like, wow, plus I had a therapist and a case manager waiting to start. I couldn't have them start till I got paid. Everything was up and running. Everything was ready to go. I just needed to get credentialed. And after 6 months, I quit. It just wasn't worth it.
Wow.
So my buddy who's starting her own practice, the building's still being built and this and that. She listened to me. She's put in a collaboration to get it under her name. Now, after you're under somebody's name of the company, it's a lot quicker after that. But if you're the one starting the practice, they act like they never knew you before. All these insurance companies know me for 30 years. They know me. I've been billing for them for all these places I've worked. And now they act like you're somebody brand new. They've never heard of you before. So you have to jump through hoops, and it's pretty rough. Man. I was going to work for one company, and she was going to have me pay for my own credentialing to work for her. They wanted to charge me $150 per company, and there was like 8 of them.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to pay that to work for you.
Yeah, well, you would think that
with a split,
you would think at least it would be like compensated or maybe even like reimbursed. It would be the equivalent of like asking someone to like, relocate and providing like a relocation bonus at least, or like a laptop allowance. That's a little odd.
Chris, I'm not good like you. I don't have the skills you do for like money management and that type of thing. That was my mistake. I didn't understand the income aspect of the business. You have those skills. I don't. Some people don't.
I appreciate you saying that. I would love to see if my team, if they listen to this podcast, are nodding their heads yes, or if they're shaking their head and be like, nah, not him. So, but I do appreciate the kind words there. You said it takes 6 months. Or, I'm sorry, did I catch it? 6 months or 1.5 years?
About 1.5 years to get all your credentialing done.
So that was the big... So, like, when you were saying, like, that was, like, the big mistake, opening up a practice. Because 1.5 years of not...
Seeing patients, I should have just waited till I got all my credentialing done and then opened it. Then say that I'm opening it and start seeing patients. Instead, I felt sorry for them, and I started seeing all of them. And then I was doing case management stuff for free, helping them get their utility bills paid and all this other stuff for free. And I just felt bad. And it was really sad. I'm really heartbroken how it turned out, because it could have been a great business. I actually had a medical doctor that had like 5 practices and wanted to refer everyone to me because he knew my work, because again, I send letters to medical providers requesting sleep studies, neurological workups for this, and this, temporal lobe damage, blah, blah, blah. He got to know me through all my letters, and he's one of the few doctors that actually read my letters and got people in for treatment and then send me results. So then he said, why don't you see all my patients psychiatrically? So it could have been a good thing, but again, that was the mistake I made. I didn't know. So it was pretty sad. I spent all that money on electronic medical records and all the upfront costs, but I couldn't get anything in return.
Wow. I guess, has it left like a sour taste in your mouth, or do you ever think you'll maybe go back to that and try it again? What does that look like for you?
No, it made me too sad. Probably if I did today and told that guy I'll start my business again, and he'd say okay, but I don't have the heart for it anymore, because it doesn't make me bitter. It just makes me more sad. Like I feel like a failure, and that it failed, and I could have helped so many people, and feel bad about it. It's more a sadness thing.
It's so interesting. Like, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, nursing, non-nursing, tech entrepreneurs, and it's that same sort of identity that they have with their company, So sometimes the company's doing really well, they're sort of standing up loud and proud. Company's not doing super well, they're sort of like, the opposite, Like I remember that March, April, May, right around COVID. As kind of COVID started really taking a hold. I think it was like March 20th, something around that date reminds me, right around then. And those couple of months were so trying on so many business owners, just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. How are people going to make it forward? So I totally get you. And
well, I put in to get some grants to help me through the COVID and the mental health crisis.
Yeah.
I didn't nothing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm providing mental health care, and they're saying everybody needs it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty sad. I just feel really bad about it. I feel guilty too, because I spent so much money with the overhead, with the computer system, the answering service. There's all these little expenses every month that you pay, and I feel really guilty too. More sad and guilty.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So I guess, what year did that happen? Like, when did that happen, and when did you switch over
2 years
to what you're
ago.
doing? 2 years
Just
ago.
when COVID was starting to, yeah.
Oh, it was also bad. It was also a rough market time as well.
Well, I had it was telepsych, and there was tons of people for me to see. So that wasn't a number thing.
Mm-hmm. How are you feeling right now with the explosion of telepsych? Like, do you think psych needs to be done in person? Do you think there's an added value that's gathered with seeing someone face to face, or do you think telepsych is equally as good? Where do you stand there?
Well, here's the problem. Working with some of the population.
That's a cat next to you. This entire time I had no idea.
Oh, could you see him? Normally I have a background, but I didn't have time to put a background up.
Yeah, it's lovely.
The dog over here sleeping. They're my two buddies. Whenever I'm in my office, they're here.
Oh my God.
We take in special needs animals.
Oh, that's amazing.
And these two are like obsessed. Whenever I'm in this room, they have to be here.
That's amazing. I had no idea. I'm sorry to cut you off. Okay, you were talking about...
Oh, it's okay. You're going to go into timeout if you don't go back to bed. We're going to timeout. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, about the telepsych.
Telepsych versus... Yeah.
Okay, because I got sick of it, and I ended up quitting my job and doing something else, because I'd be on the telepsych, and they'd be on the phone. It'd be like, hold on, Dr. Gardiner, I got to put my order in. I'll have a burger and fries. It's like, you're putting your fast food order in during our session? Come on, man. We got 15 minutes together. This has to be our sacred time together. Not you going through the drive-through. You need to get somewhere quiet when we meet. Just the two of us, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
And so they'd be shopping, and they'd be bouncing around shopping or driving in their car. It got to be ridiculous. And I thought, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Then they didn't really give me time to make the calls, to get the call to go through and everything for the telepsych. enter them to the room in 15 minutes. That really knocks some of that time off there. But I didn't care for it in that realm.
Yeah.
I'm starting a new job with cash only and people with private insurance, telepsych, in January. So I'll know then if it's different or not with a different clientele. Plus, they get charged if they don't show up for an appointment. So it may be a different clientele, and the appointments may mean more to them. I don't know, but that was pretty freaking me out. That, it's like, what? And then going in the lobby, it smelled like a weed den, And then people would come in and they'd get the same lecture. Look, I don't want you coming in here high, okay? How'd you like it if I was sitting here high? They go, oh, you want to? I like, no, I don't want to get high with you. I'm just making a point here. You don't want me treating you if I'm high. I want to see you for you, not when you're under the influence. I want to see you for you. That's another thing. Same deal. It's setting limits with people, but that telepsych was out of control. I'm like, I can't believe it,
Interesting. Yeah, I would actually love to do a follow-up, in a few months from now when, a few months into the next position and get an idea of if that's sort of, there's a term for it, but basically creating a negative incentive on if they're not showing up to the meetings, they're still being charged for it, if that makes a difference in sort of a quality and how serious they take it. So
yeah, I don't think they can really do that through CMH because it's so many multiple reasons why people don't show up there.
Yeah.
I don't think that would work at all or would be a good thing. But in the private sector, it would be interesting. So it'll be neat to see how the visits go with that. If they take it more seriously and it's me and them really discussing things, I don't know. I mean, most of the people I saw were stable. I'd seen them. They knew me well, but still, I was like shocked. I couldn't believe it. And it was happened so often. Then I talked to some of my buddies, same thing. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues or not. I don't know.
I honestly, I'm going to put in my calendar to reach out to you and maybe, 2 months from now and get an idea of it. And I'm sure the folks listening in would want to hear that because I'm sure they're wondering the same thing of, I'm a psych NP and, I have 2 competitive offers. What are the things I don't know about? If I take this offer versus another one or the patient population versus another patient population. So, yeah. With that being said, as we're sort of moving to wrapping up without any particular rush, one of the topics I know we talked a bit about, but not necessarily very directly. Are there any direct strategies or tips in just in your experience as an NP to connect with your patient better that other NPs don't know about, they haven't learned anything?
This is my 15-minute chapter. There's tricks. Remember I told you when they come in and they sit next to me. I hate it when somebody sticks them on the other side of the desk. That's a psychological barrier between you and them. When they sit next to me, it's more like a visit. I use the word visit instead of appointment. They sit there, I can look at them right away. I type things in, I ask more questions, I get them focused. But I also leave myself little notes like Jimmy enjoys hanging out with his dog, Joey. So that when Jimmy comes in, I'll say, hey, how's little Joey doing? And then he'll start telling me about his dog. Well, I'm looking for facial asymmetry and other neurological deficits. Does he smile when he speaks appropriately? Is he making eye contact? I'm doing that assessment during that chit chat. Another trick that I use, I don't want anybody to think I'm a liar or anything, but everybody gets a compliment every visit, whether they could be smelling and dirty and living in an abandoned building. And like I told you before, Katharine Hepburn says, for beautiful eyes, see the beauty in others. For pretty lips, speak words of love and kindness. Well, after a while, you begin to see the beauty in everybody. And there's always something when they come in. Like, you have a little sparkle in your eyes today, or that beard looks good on you. A lot of guys can't grow beards. Is that right? That's what I hear. And then they'll talk about this and that. Everybody gets a nice compliment. The other trick is, now, this is where I don't want you to think I'm a liar. I'll notice that they missed like 3 visits, but I don't know that till just now. But when they come in, I'll say, Jimmy, I was really worried about you. When you don't show up, I get worried. You didn't call or anything, I can back you up. I'll get you an extra script if you can't make it in so you don't run out of your meds. But next time, give us a call or come on in. I get worried when you don't show up. So right there, they feel that you really genuinely care about them. And I do, but I just don't know that they didn't show up for, whatever.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. No,
so those are ways
that's
to
really
connect.
smart.
And always I try to connect with people on a spiritual level as well. Like I usually say a prayer when I start my day to purify my office. And I have a little ritual that I do to make sure my work area, including the computer and all, is set up a certain way so that I'm in the right frame of mind as well to be of service to others.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think there's it's so funny you're talking about kind of having your patient kind of close to you in a visit. There's this I don't want to say it's gonna sound weird saying we're calling it a negotiation strategy because it kind of like the connotation is as negative or it's manipulative. It's not. But some of the best sort of negotiations or conversations that start off antagonistic, I've always found, at least in the business sense, right, which isn't necessarily in person, necessarily could be over Zoom, but it's metaphorically going from across the table of talking to someone. And metaphorically, like imagine you're on the same, like you walk around the table, you sit down next to them, you put your arm around them, and you point at another problem, or you're pointing at, an opportunity there, right? Mm-hmm. So, so it might be, a common frustration, nurses, our students, they're extremely frustrated. Finding a preceptor takes them months. They've cold called 100 clinics, and they're not sales people. They're nurses. They're cold calling, 10, 20 people a week, and they're not getting a response back. They're so frustrated, and sometimes they'll call us and then they'll be frustrated. They're like, oh, you know what, this sucks, et cetera. Like they take out their frustration on us sometimes,
Yeah.
And we always tell them, hey, direct it back. Like who's causing that frustration? Well, it's not your fault, right? The nurse, like the student, John, Kelly, whatever, it's not your fault. You're the nurse, you're in school, right?
A lot of it's management fault at these agencies.
It's a management. It's a university. It's a lot of factors.
At community mental health agencies, which are a good place to learn. You got to go through them to get permission.
Yeah.
And that's
sometimes it's systematic too.
Out, hey, go to these people. Find an NP that works at the CMH. See if she'll precept you and ask her boss if she can do it. There's little tricks to try to get people, but it's still hard, and we shouldn't have to jump through hoops like that. And I feel really bad.
Oh, I'm telling you. I was telling you that story sort of like on like this like intro call we did. What was it, last week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago? And it blew my mind when I found out what U.S. nursing students have to go through. And the reason I say U.S. specifically is because the very first company I worked with, we did clinical placements. We did partnerships with medical schools in international medical schools, like in the Caribbean, a lot of them out there in Asia. And they lacked the physical infrastructure in the U.S., so I understood what the issues were. In the U.S., though, when you're talking about these NPs, and it's not even just one's going to smaller programs and more unknown. It's going to a top tier program, a top 20 program. Yeah. They don't help their students find preceptors. Like it's bonkers to me in terms of like the lack of support and there's a lack of the support that's going on right now. And I think people are going to start talking more about it.
They pay, the amount of money at some of the tuitions is unbelievable nowadays. And that stupid PL, I've been trying to get my PhD help pay for it. I don't qualify for any of the grants anywhere for underserved areas or any of that. I even did Nurse Corps. I think I'm too old to be admitted to the military, so they can't draft me. So I haven't applied for that. Heck, but there's a small part they can put you in the military.
No, I mean, I'm
with you 100%. I'm glad you opened that company because there's such a need.
I remember wishing years ago, I remember telling my co-founder, I think it was 2017, maybe 16, I was like, if we could just have 3 nurses reach out to us a day, 3 nurses a day, we would be an amazing place. Something like that. I remember that would be like the dream. I could only wish that would happen to this organization, this company as we were first starting. And that 3 eventually turned into, I don't know, 10, 15 a day, 20 a days. And it's like we haven't even made a dent. I really thought, like, in a naive sort of like, I was like kind of in my late 20s at the time. Thought like, yeah, you know what? Like, we're going to solve it. We're going to fix this in like 5 years and like fix it. And it's like, all right, well, we help like, I actually don't even know the number off the top of my head right now, but I don't know, maybe 3,000-4,000 nurses a year this year, and it's like we didn't even make a dent in the number of nurses out there that need rotations. It's bonkers.
Believe it, I know.
It's
There's
bonkers.
a need for your company.
So I don't know how we got to this topic, though I obviously love talking about it. Kelly, I want to thank you so much for your real advice today. I don't think we had anyone that has said it so directly before, and I'm really excited about the feedback from the audience. I'm excited about following up with you in a couple months to see how your new job is going. And this has been a lot of fun.
I hope the book will be out. My goal is the end of January. Get it out by then.
Yeah, I would love. So I'll have my team reach out to you to get that chapter. We could post that along with this. That would be lovely. But more than anything else, is please let us know when that book comes out. Love to, help share that, because it's awesome that you're writing one. And writing a book sucks. It's awful. It's not fun. I don't know anyone else that likes it. No one likes it. And the fact that you actually wrote one and fully it's inspiring. And I think you're talking about topics that obviously people aren't talking a lot about.
Yeah, they don't. Half the stuff. The MTHFR, I told you about that. It's not a swear word. It's another chapter.
Oh, God. for the next episode. Of course.
Thanks for having me over to visit. And it's nice seeing you again. Don't forget to send me that thing for the APNA. I'll put a little post on there about your book.
Oh, yes, the book, the marketing book. I spent 2 years writing that. Yes, I will get that to you. I promise.
Yeah, and I'll post it on the APNA, which probably some of the people here are parts of American Psychiatric Nurse Association.
Well, if they're not, they should be. They should be part of it. Austrian should join it. All right, Kelly, thank you so much.
Take care, Chris, and goodbye, everybody. Have a good holiday. All right, bye.